Okay, well, good morning, world. Morning, John. Great to see you
Morning,
again.
Jim.
Yeah. And my name is Jim Trezise. I'm president of WineAmerica, the National Association of American Wineries in Washington, D.C. And for 32 years, I was the president of the New York Wine and Grape Foundation, which Sam now runs so capably. And it's great to be here. And I salute the foundation and Cornell for putting together the Bev New York Conference. I have the privilege today of recognizing a colleague and friend, John Martini, with an award that surprised me several years ago, and it's called the Jim Trezise Lifetime Achievement Award. And I was totally surprised and honored and humbled to receive it. But even better, I'm able to pass it on to people who I think are more deserving, or at least as deserving as I, including our late great colleague, John Brom, a couple of years ago, and this year, John Martini as well. And I just wanted to give a little bit of background on the Unity Awards, which are going to be offered for the next couple of days here at Bev New York. Basically, when the foundation was created in 1985, it was the result of a lot of people working together, grape growers, wineries, New York Farm Bureau, other people as well, legislators, Governor Mario Cuomo, and basically everybody saying we need to do something and we need to do it together. And so we did, and we formed the organization. And then we also realized that for it to have any power, we had to continue working together. And so, as I say, diversity is our strength, unity is our power. So we created an award a few years later called the Unity Award. And the first recipient was a guy named Bert Silk from Canandaigua Wine Company, who was the first chairman of the Wine and Grape Foundation board and really was miraculous in bringing everybody together and unifying the whole group. Over time, there have been a number of other awards as well that have come under the umbrella of the Unity Award. There's one called Industry Award for significant accomplishments. There's also a research, grape grower, winery, wholesaler, retailer, restaurant, sustainability, and a bunch of consumer, and a bunch of other awards that recognize that a successful industry is the result of a lot of people working together for the same cause. So that's what this is about. And as I said, the Lifetime Achievement Award was a wonderful surprise the other day, and I'm very happy to be able to pass it on to my friend John Martini. And when I was thinking about this, what words could I possibly use to describe why he deserves the award? I couldn't think of any of my own. So I decided that I'm going to use his own words, the words of the wit and wisdom of John Martini, and do a little bit of color commentary along the way. And then John will have an opportunity to respond before he goes to Capitol Hill to meet with senators and so forth. And it's very typical. Here he is, John Martini, in Washington, receiving an award which he richly deserves. So here are the quotes that I'm going to go through very quickly. Anne and I, that's two people, Anne and I, but it's pronounced Anne and I. We'll get back to it in a minute. The Fabulous Finger Lakes. Did you hear the one about? The money's good and the show is great. I just hope to be able to feed my family. A winery is a black hole for money and dreams. Show up, stand up, and speak up. I like to talk with people who don't agree with me. And finally, be well, do good. So let me start with Anne and I. And basically, it's one word. It's Anne and I. It's not Anne and I. It's Anne and I. That's the way it's pronounced because they're basically truly a couple with their souls and their hearts intertwined. And this is a love story for all the ages. That's certainly going to be on Netflix. And by the way, I want to let everybody know that everything that I say today is totally true. And I've had it double fact checked by QAnon and Rudy Giuliani. So you can count on what I'm going to be able to tell you. But with John and Anne, what happened, it's not the Montagues and Capulets in Italy, it's the Martinis and Costellos in New Jersey. And not only did they live in the same state, they lived in the same city of Waldwick, they lived in the same neighborhood, and in fact, they were next door neighbors. And one day, the Martini family plumbing broke, and it flooded the basement of the Costello home. And John, being a young man of good conscience, ran next door to give them a warning and apologize as well. And when Anne opened the door, John was so smitten, he forgot all about the apology and he dropped to his knees and proposed. And Anne said, well, wait, what? You've flooded our home and now you're asking me to marry you? And then she said, yeah, sure. Yeah, I'll do that. And for those of you who don't know, Anne Martini is a total saint. So anyway, they got married in 1967, 55 years ago, and eventually started a family, which I get to later on. They also go everywhere together, and people expect that as well. In 2007, December, John and I stumped for Hillary Clinton in Iowa. It was very, very cold. And we showed up as a surprise at his TV studio, and Hillary looked at us and said, "Where's Anne?" Because she wanted to see Anne and expected Anne to be with John, because she always is as well. The second quote is the fabulous Finger Lakes. And the context is basically, he says, "My name's John Martini from the fabulous Finger Lakes." And soon after they got married, a friend of theirs said they could make a fortune by buying a bunch of land and planting grapevines in the Finger Lakes. And there's an old saying in California that if you want to make a small fortune, you start with a large fortune and get a winery. And so that's what they did. They went to the Finger Lakes, planted some vines and so forth, and have stayed there ever since. And they totally love it. John goes to a lot of meetings all around the country. He's in Washington, D.C. right now. And when these self-introductions happen, he says, "I'm John Martini from the fabulous Finger Lakes." And that branding has stuck. So when people see John now, they say, "John, how are things in the fabulous Finger Lakes?" So everybody knows that the Finger Lakes, in fact, are really fabulous. Another quote is, "Did you hear the one about?" And this is kind of a warning that unless you like jokes, you should walk away, because this is the introduction to a whole encyclopedia of jokes, which John has. And I asked Anne one time if he's been like this all of his life, and she said, "No, I don't think so. I think it started about 1985. And I said, "Okay, 1985, what's going on?" What happened was that in 1984, we got a law passed that allowed New York wineries to sell their wines by the bottle directly to consumers at not-for-profit farmers markets, like Union Square Grain Market. So John was the first one to do this. He'd load up his car every Friday afternoon, drive 6 hours to New Jersey, go to a flea bag motel, get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, set up his tent, sell wine all day, and then on Saturday night, drive all the way back home so he could be with Anne. And everybody, myself included, was really impressed with how dedicated this guy was to his business, to his family, and so forth. And then I realized that's not the reason he's going there. He's going there because he can do stand-up comedy. And so he tells jokes all day when he's selling the wine, and he gets material from people who give him new jokes to take back to the Finger Lakes. In fact, he even gives discounts to people who give him the new material. So anyway, that's where the money's good and the show is great came in. "I just want to be able to feed my family." That's what John says when public officials and others ask him why he got into this business, and that's why they followed friends' advice and planted the grapevines in the Finger Lakes. And they worked really, really hard. They started a family. They have 4 wonderful children who gave them 12 wonderful grandchildren as well. And they worked and worked and worked so hard until they realized that, as John says, a winery is a black hole for money and dreams. So they sold the winery to their kids and moved to Belize. And that's not true. Actually, they didn't move. They stayed in the Finger Lakes, but they did sell the winery to the kids. Show up, stand up, speak up. That's what John is doing right now. That's what he's done his entire career. During the 5 decades that he's been in the fabulous Finger Lakes wine country, John did as he said. He showed up, he stood up, and he spoke up at meetings of the New York State Wine Grape Growers, New York Wine Industry Alliance, the New York Wine and Grape Foundation, Finger Lakes Wine Alliance, Seneca Lake Wine Trail, WineAmerica, Wine Grape Growers of America, National Grape Research Alliance, and so many other organizations. Are too numerous to mention if we want to keep into our time. And his activism and advocacy also extended well beyond New York in leadership roles, to the extent that he received the first ever Rich Smith Award of Excellence for three characteristics: passion, commitment, and collaboration. John is loved and respected from coast to coast. I like to talk with people who don't agree with me. Now think about that for a second. How many other people have you heard say that? How many other people in this time of hyper-partisanship, polarization, and outright hatred? How many people like to talk with other people? Well, John does, because he believes it's a way to learn and to share and to build bridges and maybe even to achieve peace, even if we continue to disagree agreeably. So that's something that's really a characteristic that is very unique. And then finally, be well, do good. This really sums it up. That's what he's done. He's stayed well so he can do good for others. They're often his closing words in emails and on the phone, and he really means it. After all, that's the way he has lived his life and provided such an incredible example for his family, his friends, and everyone who has ever had the privilege of knowing him. He's lived a lifetime of achievement, and happily, I know there's still a lot to come. So, John, thank you. You're the best. And now you can respond to everything that I have said.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks so much. I'm honored to be honored by the honoree of the Jim Trezise Unity Award. I certainly appreciate your words, and I appreciate the honor of being a Unity Award winner. You indicated that we got into this business, so I owe a debt of gratitude to an old friend, Fred Lewis, who passed a number of years ago, but he was the one who said, you ought to quit your job and grow grapes. And I look at the people that influenced me in the Finger Lakes, in the grape industry, and in a sense, the involvement industry. And one was Monty Stamp. Okay, I got to work on this because, as you know, Jim, I get emotional about these things. At least I had some time to prepare some thoughts. Okay, that's my last word about money. But, you know, and you mentioned Anne, and there's that saying that honored men or strong men are supported by a strong woman behind them. Well, I think there's a problem with the location. Usually they're next to you or in front of you, but not always behind you. And Anne is that person. We moved up to the Finger Lakes to grow grapes. We didn't know, anything about it. I almost made a flaw there, which is common as you get older. Your verbal filter breaks down. But she trimmed the grapes. She tied the grapes. She was out in the vineyard. She brought our two younger children out there in playpens outside. She bore the four children. You know, as a man, God, childbirth is really easy. I was lucky to be in the delivery room to watch her easily deliver the last two children. Maeve gets a big kick out of that, I'm sure. But, you know, I mean, it is the pair of us, and it is the family. And, you know, so thank you, Anne, for saying, okay, I'll do it. Let's go to the Finger Lakes and grow grapes. So that's my two words before I break down in an emotional pile. So thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.
Well, congratulations, John, again on the Jim Trezise Lifetime Achievement Award. And I can say, from my perspective, that not only has John been a great champion, but he served on the Wine and Grape Foundation board for over 10 years. And fortunately, I had the chance to start my tenure as executive director with him on the board. And you've been a great ally, mentor, sounding board, and visited you so many times in the Union Square Market on a Saturday morning. Just took the subway down and we talked books or talked wines or just watched the good scenes. So I'm really pleased to recognize you this year.